Welcome back to the Canadian Muslim Youth Digital Stories. My name is Abdul and I will be the host in today's interview. Today we're going to be interviewing Haidar about his experience living in multiple Muslim countries, living in Canada, about his experience being a visible Muslim minority, about embracing change, and about taking in all that life has to throw at you. Thank you so much for coming on today, Haidar.
Yeah, for sure. It's nice to be welcomed here. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, there's a few different things that I want to talk to you about because you have an experience that I think is a very rare, unique experience for a Canadian Muslim youth. So, one of the things that's really unique about your experience is that you had a chance to live in a lot of different Muslim countries
Yes.
and in Canada, right? So, what's that experience like?
I think it's very eye-opening. I think I grew up in Indonesia for 6 years. Then we moved Norway, which is for a year, and then I went to Qatar for 4 years, UAE for 2 years, then Canada, and then Malaysia, and then back to Canada. I think definitely the biggest change, like biggest, I think the biggest, I think difference is like just not like figuring out how to interact with non-Muslims who might not understand the religion more in like non-Muslim countries compared to, um, let's say you're in a Muslim country. There's still non-Muslims there, but they understand more because they live in a Muslim country. I think that's really big. And then just the lack of masjids. I think masjids play such a integral role in our religion. So the fact that when in non-Muslim countries it takes a bit of effort to find a masjid that's close to you, whereas in like Muslim countries there's almost a masjid in every other block. So I think that's also pretty big. Just like learning how to cope with that and learning how to make time for the masjid, because normally in Muslim countries you take it for granted. Like the 1 minute you're like at home, and then the next minute you feel like going to the masjid, and it's just kind of next door. Here you actually have to make some time for it, especially if you live far away.
So, what is a unique problem that, or a unique challenge that you think you have either as a Muslim youth or Muslim youth in general have in Canada that other Muslim youth in Muslim countries, in countries overseas, they wouldn't have these problems?
I think like just learning how to talk about the religion is really it's very unique, or not unique, but I guess different. If you're in Canada or another non-Muslim countries, learning how to, I think you're forced to kind of learn how to talk about the religion to other people and how to explain why we do the things we do, as compared to if you're living in a Muslim country. I think non-Muslims there in general just accept the way you do things. And here sometimes you would have to explain to yourself like, why are you fasting for 30 days? And like a lot of people just find it curious, like they don't ask it like in an offensive way, but they just kind of find it curious. And I think it's almost like dawah for us. So like we have like this responsibility to explain the religion to them, and who knows, it might benefit them for, heck knows when, if they start becoming more curious about Islam and stuff like that. I think that's like the biggest, difference or biggest thing that I kind of learned when I go to non-Muslim countries is I just get used to like talking about the religion in a positive manner, in a beneficial way, almost like a bit like dawah. Yeah.
Yeah. So, going into this idea, or you touched a little bit about, they kind of ask you questions you have to explain.
Yeah.
One of the things they probably ask you a lot of questions about is your head covering. You basically wear this symbol that lets the world know, hey, I'm a Muslim. Um, and girls have to, they wear hijab. So for them, that experience is kind of normal. That experience is something that a lot of other girls go through, a lot of other Muslim girls go through.
Yeah.
But you almost never see it with Muslim guys,
Yeah.
right? So, what has your experience been like wearing it?
Yeah, for sure. I think I started wearing it when I came back to Canada after I was in Malaysia. And like the main reason I started wearing it was because when I started high school, I think it was grade 11, I decided to do online school and did my options in a region where there wasn't that many Muslims. So in the Career and Technology Center, which is kind of where I went to do my courses, there was only like visibly that I could recognize. There was only like 4 to 5 Muslims that was there, and none of them were, or like I think one of them was in my class once, but that was about it. So I started wearing it because I had this fear of being peer pressured to act in ways that I don't want to act in, like maybe breaking like stuff, or like doing stuff that I shouldn't be doing as a Muslim. So I started wearing it as a reminder to myself, and also just like just for other people to also know that I am also religious. Like I don't know if this like people would recognize this as like a they recognize me as a Muslim. Sometimes I also get mistaken as a Jewish. I think they have
Mm,
something a bit similar, but a bit smaller. But in general, when people see this, they automatically think that I'm religious,
mm.
which kind of does the purpose for me. But yeah, but in general, I started wearing it because it was just a something that I wanted to internalize and like something that I wanted to protect my faith.
How do you
Yeah.
think it's impacted your identity? Has it become a part of you almost? Like,
Yeah, yeah.
is this now a part of your identity?
Yeah, I think it, in a way, it has like when people see this, they almost recognize it's me.
Mm-hmm.
Almost like half the time. It's also it's become a huge part of my identity because it's when I have this on, I feel like a sense of responsibility that I have to act, that I have to like be a positive light for the Muslim community or like for
Mm.
the community in general, because I'm like representing Islam in a way. So in a way, yeah, it's become a big part of my identity in general, and I wear it everywhere I go. So unless I'm like going out to do sports, but most of the time I wear it for work, and it's become like a little piece of my identity, and people recognize me for it.
And do you think this understanding of being Canadian, like that understanding that, what it means to be Canadian is a unity in our differences,
Yeah.
that sort of an understanding, do you think that supports your Muslim identity? Do you think that that actually gives you the confidence and the liberty to be able to, express yourself fully as Muslim?
Yeah, I think so. I think like when I started wearing this, it was in like it was a big like at first it was like a big challenge because I wasn't sure how people would like accept it or view it or if I would get ostracized or isolated. But when I started wearing it to school, like people were curious, but they weren't. Most people don't even think about it. Like they don't even
Mm-hmm.
ask me about it. Like the people who do ask about it are usually my people who are really close to me. So like I was really close with my teachers, and they would they would ask about it, and they would ask about my perspectives and stuff like that. So I had a really like even though there wasn't that many Muslims there, they were super welcoming to other religions and cultures and stuff like that. So I had a really welcoming community when I was in high school, and I think that plays a huge role in just my confidence of being a Muslim.
Let's say that, you could go back, turn back the clocks 10 years,
Yeah,
right? And you're talking to your younger self, right? Or let's say you're talking to, a younger youth today. What advice would you give them about navigating their life as a Canadian Muslim youth?
I think if I would go back and give that advice to myself, or I think one of the first things I would say is um, observe your similarities and observe your differences and accept it all.
Hmm.
I think being different is okay. That's like one of the I think the main motto is being different is okay, and you can still belong even if you're different. Um, and in Canada, they accept that concept fully. So I think that's one of the big lessons that I've learned over the years is that sometimes you're even more respected if you're different. If you're unique, you might even get more success because you have a whole different mindsets and different perspectives that you can bring into the table sometimes, and people here respect that, and they sometimes they listen to these different perspectives because I think every person in this world has in general is unique and is different and has different perspectives, and if you can learn to share those perspectives and use it in your everyday life, I think it could be really powerful um, for you as a new Muslim here, and it could also really help you connect with other people here as well, because as we said earlier, people here really unify through differences people here are really accepting and are very curious about differences, and they love finding ways for us to connect. And I think if you can learn to do that early on, it'll really help with. There's like one question that I've been asking a lot of my friends recently is like, which one do you value more, sense of purpose or sense of belonging? And I think this is something that I think ties in with a lot of things that we talked about. Is I think for me, I have a really strong sense of purpose. So, and that sense of purpose is derived from my spirituality and religion. And I think that's also one of the reasons why sometimes I don't feel like I need to belong anywhere, because I think my sense of purpose drives me in my everyday life. But I think it also differs from other people. I think some people might value a sense of belonging more over a sense of purpose, and they maybe get a sense of purpose from their sense of belonging. And I think, I think different people views different things in different ways. And I think, I think in general, I think just learning to internalize what your needs are is really important when you come here as a new Canadian Muslims. Yeah.
Something that I really liked is you said, accept it all, right? The positive, the negative, you kind of accept everything, and then you can kind of decide afterwards, right? Accept the change that comes your way, and to embrace these kinds of things that happen in your life.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think that's incredible. And through it all, the string that kind of continually keeps your identity together and gives you that sense of wholeness is that spirituality.
Yeah.
And being able to live in a Canadian Muslim context allows you to express that fully.
Yeah, for
right?
sure. I think like if you can identify what your values are early on, I think it really helps you later in life. And it really helps you cope with your challenges, or cope when you encounter new environments, new people. Because if you're really clear on what your values are, you'll often attract or even gravitate towards people of similar values.
Incredible. Well, thank you again.
Yeah,
Thank you for coming on, and
thanks for the questions. I really enjoyed it, and I'm really curious to see where this project goes. Really curious to see the other interviews as well.